and welcome to Magic by Design. If you're listening for the first time, why don't you ruminate while I illuminate the possibilities of this podcast? We are aiming to watch and review every Disney animated feature film. Each and every week we break down a movie from the Disney canon in an attempt to discover the secrets behind the magic. You ain't ever heard a review like this as we look back on Disney's 31st animated feature film Aladdin this week. But before we rub the lamp and get things started, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ken and I am joined as always by my co-host / brother Garrett. Gar, how are you?
I feel like you should have sang that intro.
Hello there, and welcome to Magic by Design.
There we go. Who needs a song at the end? We'll have a song at the front.
Yeah, we'll bookend it with songs.
We're subverting our format.
Yeah, I don't think I could keep that up. I'm no Nicole.
Just like Aladdin. No, Aladdin doesn't really subvert its format at all. It's very much a formula Disney film in many ways.
Yes, we'll get into that, but yeah, it's a bit of a step back from the heights of Beauty and the Beast.
Well, like it's a weird film, and like this is the film where it's like, we have our formula. We're making this film to a formula that we saw in Little Mermaid, that we saw in Beauty and the Beast, and we saw a little bit back in, like, say, The Jungle Book. But, like, this is the film where it's... And, like, that's not a bad thing, because it's a very effective formula. It's a really good formula, but it's a formula nonetheless.
But the strange thing to me is that some of the same people who were involved in Beauty and the Beast that made it that leap forward in terms of storytelling are involved here.
Didn't Jeffrey Katzenberg throw the script out again?
Yeah, we'll get
to that. That's probably why.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, I can see why they eventually ousted him at Disney.
This is the second film in a row where halfway through production, he threw it out. The second one in a row. Come on, that's untenable. You can't do that to people. And even if it produces better work in the end, it's like, nah, we're throwing this element out, this element out, this element out. We're reworking it in this way. Start again. And we're like, well, okay then.
As we talked about, Gareth, this is a collaborative process, so there will be tweaking, changing, stuff will get cut. But to start again with I think it was a year and a half to go before release date, and
not move the release date. That's the other bit. Like he's like, we're cutting all of this, we're changing all of it, and we're not changing the release date. Do it. And that's where you probably get formula from, because then it's just like, well, we'll just do what we know. Boy loves girl, fall in love one glance, couple of catchy tunes. There you go. Bing bang boop. Great film.
Give us $1 billion.
Yeah.
Garrett, what was your relationship with Aladdin before this?
Aladdin is one of the films I quite enjoy. Yes. Obviously, it features prominently in Kingdom Hearts. We're going straight to Kingdom Hearts early in the game, but like legitimately, a lot of my relationship with a lot of these films is from Kingdom Hearts, where it's a level in Kingdom Hearts 1, and it features prominently in other Kingdom Hearts games, where Genie is a summon, I think, in later games as well. So a lot of Kingdom Hearts material featured in Aladdin, a lot of Aladdin material that featured in Kingdom Hearts. There's a lot of Aladdin video games. You asked me before we started, it's like, was this the first Disney video game? Which it's not. I actually have the list in front of me. But there were very famously 2 Aladdin video games, one for the Sega Genesis and one for the Super Nintendo. So they really were like, hey, we want to get our Aladdin games out. Because, usually when you get a game released on 2 platforms, it's the same game on 2 platforms.
Yeah.
No, 2 different games. They're different games.
Wow. I've only ever played the Nintendo one.
Yeah, the one on the collection is the Genesis one, I think, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, I think so. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I've only played the Sega one.
Yeah, they played the Sega one, because the Super Nintendo one was made by Capcom, whereas that one is one of the Disney ones. But to your question about Disney video games, Ken, there was a cancelled Snow White game on the Atari, a cancelled Dumbo game on the Atari, before the first Disney animated film game. Unless there's a Pooh one. No, there was a Pooh game in 1984, so Pooh is first. Then you get, of course, Ken, the most important video game in 1986, on the Apple II, The Black Cauldron.
Boo.
Which I assume was some kind of adventure game. Then you get Basil the Great Mouse Detective is an Atari game. Jungle Book is an Atari game. Oliver and Company is an Atari game. I want to dig out these games on the Amiga.
I've never heard of any of these.
Yeah, there's some weird handheld games for Oliver and Company, The Rescuers, for 100 Mole Dalmatians. There's a Little Mermaid NES game, which I don't think I've ever seen or heard of.
Again, like, the reason I thought Aladdin was first is because I've never heard of any of these.
There was some kind of Beauty and the Beast handheld game, a Jungle Book game, a Cinderella game. Who are these Tiger Electronics? These are probably like weird, like Game & Watch style games, like single handheld devices, because they call them handheld electronic games.
Yeah, you saw those in the shops, and you still see them from time to time. They're cheap, and it's like LED.
Yeah, the LED displays where it's just one game. Yeah. Which is interesting. But yeah, then there was a Jungle Book game released on the Genesis. Then there was a Beauty and the Beast game released on the Genesis. And then you had the Aladdin games released in 93. Released a year afterward. They didn't even hit release.
Fun fact about Kingdom Hearts, the person who voices Jafar in the film also voices Jafar in the game.
It's always quite nice when they get that continuity, because James Woods does the voice of Hades.
Boo.
Very famously. Why are you booing him?
James Woods is a bit of a problematic figure these days.
Oh no, what did he do?
He's very far right.
Ruins everything, but he does the voice of Hades in the Kingdom Hearts games as well. But then you get the string of every game, like the Lion King game, which is quite famous and not very good. Then you get everything turned, and Under the Sun is turned into a game. You get the famous Hercules games, Tarzan games, all that fun stuff, which we might talk about more when we get to those episodes. Because I actually played the Hercules game the other day.
Yeah, I think going forward, I've played a lot of these games, so we can factor it into each episode.
Yeah, you can beat that Hercules game in 2 hours. I did beat that Hercules game in 2 hours.
I didn't even see you play it.
Yeah, that's how quickly I beat it.
Fair play, Gar. I have a deep affinity for this film because it was the first I ever saw in the cinema. You might remember that from our intro episode.
This was the first film that was released while I was born.
Yes.
You would have been about 3.5 when you saw this film.
It was released in Ireland in 1993, so it's possibly the first Disney movie I ever saw. And Aladdin sits firmly at number 3 in my top 5, and I try to watch it at least once a year.
This is your yearly rewatch? Did you hold off?
Yes, I did. I don't. There's films that I want to watch, but I don't watch because I want to save it for the podcast.
So you're like, I feel like rewatching Princess and the Frog, but you can't for another 3 months.
Yeah.
Probably longer than that.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
12 movies. Are we still 12 movies away from Princess and the Frog? We might be 12 movies away from Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, we're 50. That's probably in the 50s somewhere, and we're in the 30s, so...
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember. Again, it's one of those films where I've surely watched all of Aladdin in my childhood, but I don't remember actively doing so. I know did we rewatch it or did I rewatch it recently? I think we rewatched it on one of those late night watches.
Yeah, I feel like we have watched it together at some stage.
Which is where I remember watching it most recently. And a lot of the settings, of course, I remember more distinctly from Kingdom Hearts, because that's the way apparently my brain works. But yeah, I don't have any strong relationship with Aladdin, unlike you. Lion King was the one of my childhood, the one that, the pinnacle Disney film of my youth. That, it's the Lion King, not Aladdin for me, which we'll be getting to next week.
Next week.
Oh, we're already up to the Lion King. How fast this podcast has gone.
Considering where we started, it's amazing that we're in the 90s now, and The Lion King was one of the ones I was most looking forward to, as well as Aladdin, and we're here.
Yeah, you're at the Aladdin, so can rave about it.
In 1988, lyricist Howard Ashman pitched the idea of an animated musical adaptation of Aladdin. Ashman had written a 40-page film treatment, remaining faithful to the plot and the characters of the original story, but envisioned a campy 1930s-style musical with a Cab Calloway / Fats Waller-like Genie, so basically a jazz musician. Along with partner Alan Menken, Ashman conceived several songs and added Aladdin's friends Babkak, Omar and Kasim to the story, who were cut from the film but do appear in the stage musical version, as well as some unused songs. So, as we talked about last week, one of the songs that you said was missing from Aladdin, the I Want song, which is Proud of Your Boy, it was written for the film, but it does not feature. But it does feature in the stage musical, but lately it has a bit of a controversial tone because the group, the Proud Boys, have taken their name from it.
From that song?
Yes. I think it's a tongue-in-cheek thing, because it's wholesome and...
But it's an Arab child talking about... Why would they take their name from that? Is it just one of those stupid things where they don't know where it comes from? Or they don't know that Aladdin is set in the Middle East?
I'm pretty sure they know where it comes from. I think they're being facetious.
These people suck. Would they ever just go away? Leave us alone.
They really do. The screenplay went through 3 drafts before then Disney Studios president Jeffrey Katzenberg agreed to its production. We'll get into
and then ruined it all.
Yeah, we'll get into that whole debacle when we talk about the story. Aladdin was released in November 1992 to critical and commercial success, becoming the highest grossing film of 1992 with an earn of over $504 million. That's $935 million in 2020 dollars in the worldwide box office. Aladdin was the first animated feature to reach the $500 million mark and would be the highest grossing animated film of all time until it was surpassed by, you guessed it,
The Lion King?
Indeed.
It held the record for a whole 2 years or whatever.
Just less than 2 years. Aladdin would be the last animated film entirely based on a fairy tale or folklore until Tangled, which was based on Rapunzel, in 2010. That's a gap of 17 years.
You could have a child, a full-grown adult in that time.
Yeah.
And that's where Rapunzel came from. It's the adult Disney film.
One thing I noted here, Gar, there was a cultural awareness warning at the start of this on Disney+.
Which I think is that a new thing they've added, or was it always just depending on the film?
I think they've added that recently in light of a bit of an increased sensitivity around these kind of films.
Well, yeah, they always had the, in the description, this film may contain outdated cultural depictions, but this one, they included a 10-second countdown.
Yeah, there's an opt-out countdown in case you don't want to be offended.
It's a full trigger warning kind of thing, where it's, this this film was racist at its time. It still is now, but we don't want to kill it. So, and we still want to make money off it. So,
I mean, right off the bat, you have Robin Williams, who is the storyteller. We never see him again, but he eases us into the story as the narrator. He's a market stall merchant, and he does an Arab voice, and it's very clearly Robin Williams doing an Arab voice. So it's again, I didn't notice that too much as a kid. I didn't notice it even watching it yesterday, but there are some moments that are a little bit.
And so, some of the more like real problematic stuff has already been taken out. Where like there was lyrics where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face included in Arabian Nights.
Yes, that was cut.
That was cut after the fact in like the video release. It was in the original film.
Apparently it sounds really weird because it's a different voice with that line, so it's like noticeably deeper.
Which I didn't notice watching, and there's some other stuff. There's some other controversy about like good teenagers take your clothes off, which was apparently a misinterpreted line. He's not actually saying that. It's just what it sounded like.
It's just the way it's mixed, yeah.
But they took that out too. So some of like the more like real problematic stuff in the film they've already like removed, as opposed to just the kind of general Arab stereotypes.
Yeah, I think this whole thing about all Arab women wearing like belly tops and being like seductress is a little bit dated as well.
I will say it's quite refreshing to hear the word Allah just uttered in a Disney film. Like praise Allah instead of by Allah, instead of my God. Yeah.
And they could have easily put God in there.
I'm surprised they didn't, honestly. Like, that seems like a thing they probably had a meeting about back in 1992 about but I have no idea what like Islamophobia was like in 1992. I'm sure it existed and was extraordinarily prominent.
Well, we were around the time of the Gulf War as well, you have to remember.
Yeah, but that there wasn't like there's people who were like Islamophobia began in 9/11. It's like no, but there's no doubt Islamophobia dramatically intensified after 9/11. So I have no idea where like I was 5 months old when this film came out, so I have no idea what the cultural moment regarding like Islamophobia was at this time, and whether or not like if there was a line in saying praise Allah in a current Disney film, people would melt down.
Oh yeah,
that would be a culture war thing, and you'd never hear the end of it. I wonder, were there those conversations in 92? Maybe there were.
Did people know who Allah was?
Probably not. That's another part. There's probably greater ignorance to like Islam culture and Muslims in general back then.
Moving forward here to the animation. The animation style and character designs were inspired by the flowing and swooping lines of Arabian calligraphy, combined with inspiration from the golden age of animation from 1940 to 1950. To me, this is the most graphical looking feature to date with the smooth lines and curves. We talked about this last week. You're not really able to see the seams. Aladdin is flawless. I couldn't really see any blemishes. There are some painterly backgrounds, but for the most part, it's kind of flat and graphical.
It's a lot less pretty than Beauty and the Beast is. It's a lot more, we have to get this out in 2 years, let's do it. And I think the animation is broadly functional, but I don't think the animation ever wowed me at literally any stage of this film. I think it looks good. As you said, you can't really pick holes in it. You can't be like, oh, that looks terrible. But it doesn't have those like extra effects and extra flourishes and extra detail that would make me go like, whoa, that's someone slaved over this one frame of animation for like 2 years of their life to make it look perfect and have tons of detail and have all these amazing little things. That's not this film. It actually reminds me a lot of Jungle Book and how it looks, and that it is perfectly serviceable and perfectly pleasant to look at, but it's not one of the films where you'd come away thinking this is one of the best looking animated films of all time. Yeah,
it doesn't advance the art form or give anything new in that sense. The Cave of Wonders is a really cool effect. The tiger made of sand, I think that's really cool.
It's aged quite badly.
I have this in my notes here, exactly as you said. It has aged a bit. I marvelled at it as a child, but it doesn't blend it seamlessly with the backgrounds and the 2D animation as it has in previous films, like Beauty and the Beast, as you said.
Yeah, like Beauty and the Beast only has one major 3D sequence. It's the ballroom dance, in which they go like full 3D and they have that. And like, as we mentioned last week, it does have that like early 3D metallic effect where it doesn't look like seamless and it doesn't look like fully organically integrated into the entire world, but it's 1991 3D, so it's not going to. Here, it just looks worse, and it's used more. There's a lot more 3D, and something I never noticed, Ken, watching this film, I never pegged that the magic carpet is rendered in 3D in this film.
That's also in my notes. Now, I will say I did like the movement of the carpet and the personification.
Yeah, it's all fine. It's perfectly well implemented. It's better implemented than the Cave of Wonders. But it's amazing. I've never noticed that. And that's one of those things I
think it's cel-shaded, so it blends more seamlessly.
But even then, like the first thing when the carpet appeared on screen in this film, it's like, oh, that's 3D. And I never know, like,
I never noticed
pegged
the No, me neither. I never pegged that either.
Which is, again, it's probably interesting coming from the context of seeing the 3D developed into these films slowly over time. Watching these films one by one, it becomes more noticeable as opposed to me parachuting in either as a child who just is completely oblivious to all of these things, or me as an adult who doesn't really have the reference point of them slowly implementing more 3D. But it's like, oh wait, that carpet's in 3D, and it's really interesting. Like, I never noticed that.
I think that's marked that it was successful as opposed to the Cave of Wonders, which, don't get me wrong, the design...
Bless them for trying.
Yeah, the design of it looks cool, and I like that sequence, but it just, for some reason, and I've watched this, as I said, every year, but this time, and maybe because I'm watching with a more critical eye, it just really, really stood out to me.
And it is probably, again, partially because you're watching this off the back of the films before it, where you've seen the implementation of 3D in these films, then you see this one, and it just looks out of place these days. And I think if they actually rendered the Cave of Wonders in 2D, it would have aged a lot better.
Yeah, interesting. Gar, another note I had here was that the snake sequence must have been pretty scary for kids at the time, where Jafar turns into a snake. And to that point, they could have done that in 3D, and they've resisted that. And I think that sequence is the better for that. Because imagine that in that kind of metallic-y looking 3D that's really stuck out, a la the baddies in the Power Rangers movie, if you remember, Gar.
Oh yeah, that looked great.
For the time.
How dare you besmirch the good name of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers film and big gooey 3D Ivan Ooze, especially at the end when he's like, it's terrible looking, it's awful, but it's the Power Rangers movie, so who really cares?
I think if they had done that snake in 3D, it would have been really bad.
Yeah, and they showed more, like, I don't know, it's as I said, it is interesting to track where they decide to use 3D and where they don't, and it's interesting to track that they're still, like, really sticking to 2D animation broadly, but incorporating 3D elements. It's like, when do they go full 3D?
Well, if you look at the palace, that's largely done in 3D. Some of the backgrounds are painterly, as we said, but in the palace, a lot of the structural elements are in 3D. And I think that was largely successful because you can tell it has that kind of metallic-y sheen, as you've said, but it does blend more with the surroundings.
Yeah, it's like, but when Disney don't go full 3D until the 2000s, do they?
Yeah, with the likes of Chicken Little, I think that's the first fully 3D one.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how they're mastering the technology and then slowly letting it infect all of their films forever.
One last note here on the animation. There are aspects and sequences in a lot of these films that must have blown people's minds at the time, that we said previously. The entire Cave of Wonder sequence, especially the emergence of the genie, is that sequence in Aladdin. Sitting there in a dark movie theatre, it felt like being in the cave.
Oh, especially the cave escape,
yeah,
which again is a full 3D sequence.
Again,
which,
yeah,
it doesn't look great into 2020 eyes, but into 1993 eyes, it would have been like being there. I'd imagine that's one of those ones where people got like motion sick from seeing the 3D effect of the carpet zooming through the cave and escaping, which is a level in the video games as well. So
yeah, I'll be honest, I did see it. I don't remember because I was 4. But the closest analogy I have was...
Ken probably threw up in the aisles.
Yeah, the 2019 film last year, and obviously it's not the same. No. We'll get onto that probably. But there is a feeling being in a dark theater, you can immerse yourself. Being in that cave, it feels like you're there with them. So I thought that was that's probably one of those moments in the film where it was most successful. Moving on here to the story and the themes of Aladdin, it's based on the Arabic folk tale from 1001 Nights.
Did you say Arabic?
Sorry.
No, what's an Arabic folk tale?
Sorry, let me do that again. It's based on the how would you say Arabic?
Arabic, yeah.
Okay.
Not Arabic.
Sorry.
I've never heard someone say the word Arabic in my life. Arabic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Your emphasis is wrong.
I'm sorry. I'm
bullying you and making you feel self-conscious about these things.
I'm trying to enunciate. It's based on the folktale from 1000.
Oh, he avoided it. Coward.
From 1001 Nights, with Lisa Wolverton again working on the screenplay.
I had a book with the 1001 Nights.
You did? You got it for Christmas.
I don't remember reading it, but I remember having it for a very long time.
I think it's around somewhere, or did you throw it out?
It's probably around here somewhere, yeah. We went digging through every pile under the sun. We'll eventually find it.
When Disney decided to pick the project back up, Musker and Clements, who came in to direct, wrote a draft of the screenplay and then delivered a story reel to studio chief Jeffrey Katzenberg in April 1991. Katzenberg thought the script didn't engage, and on a day known as Black Friday, it's funny how black is like
bad.
It's the go-to thing for like days that are really bad.
Yes. because black is the color of darkness and evil.
Although Black Friday is good now.
Yes, because you get money off your toasters.
It's been redeemed. Demanded that the entire story be rewritten without rescheduling the film's release date.
To be fair, isn't the phrase Black Friday in reference to retail? Because, like, it's the just most monstrous, horrible retail day of the year.
People have died.
Isn't that why it's, like, called Black Friday? Because everyone knows, like, there's that shopping rush. So, like, it's still a bad phrase that's been co-opted for marketing, which is even bad. But what were you saying before I had that thought about Black Friday?
Yeah, he tossed out the film again.
Oh, yeah, what a jerk. Imagine working on this thing, and he just throws it out the window. It's like, you can't do that, dude. You can't just be like, do it different and not move the release date. Then it's just like punishing people. That sucks.
Still deliver it on time and on budget, but change everything.
Yeah.
Among the changes Katzenberg requested from Clements and Musker were to not be dependent on Howard Ashman's vision. So he wanted to fully move away from that.
It's weird how, like, Howard Ashman is an objective genius. And, like, when you look at the songs from Howard Ashman in this film, you get Friend Like Me and you get Prince Ali, which are absolute bops. Like these wonderful, big, explosive, dynamic, like really expansive dance numbers that tell you all of these things about these characters, but they're really, like, ambitious and interesting, and, like, they're full just stage musical songs. But, like, it seemed a constant fight for him at Disney to get anything done.
Yeah, and if you watch the documentary on Disney Plus, Howard, you can see that's really the case. They tried to fire him a few times. Because, like, you know, if you know anything about him, you've seen any of his videos online, he's uncompromising in his vision, like most theatre people.
Yes.
So, like, he really stood for what he believed in, and he was seen as difficult in the studio. So
but
I think they tried to sideline him.
That's the thing. It's like these executives, it's like, this person has shudders, creative vision. God forbid we're not producing cynical, mass-marketed, focus-tested entertainment that is guaranteed to make money. Instead, we're having this dude think about things and make it how he thinks it should be made. That's not what our focus group in Poughkeepsie told us. They told us that Aladdin's not very long. Get the mother out of here. That character's cut. Oh, his friends? Why does Aladdin have friends? The only friend he needs is a monkey friend. This Abu character, he's a monkey, and he makes funny faces, which, in fairness, Abu is adorable and great.
Yeah,
but still...
We do like Abu.
Like, legitimately, one of the creative geniuses in the history of Disney couldn't get anything done because these dumbass executives kept on trying to undermine him and push him out.
And it's a very 90s CEO mindset, isn't it? Like, making big sweeping moves. Like I'm a mover and a shaker. I get things done. I influence change by basically destroying people's lives.
Yeah, and forcing them probably to crunch really hard to get this damn film out on time.
You touched on it there, Gar. One of Katzenberg's changes was to remove the mother, remarking, 86, the mother, she's a zero.
What's 86 mean?
Get rid of her.
Where does that come from?
I think it's like a mob term where you go, kill him. Katzenberg also influenced the changing of the plot about Jasmine's marriage, which originally had her required to be married by law before her 16th birthday. His change was to remove the age. The Sultan only says by your next birthday, and make it more specific that her suitor needed to be a prince, which would also set up the ending where the Sultan, inspired by Aladdin's altruism, changes the law so Jasmine is able to marry anyone she deems worthy. So he's like, get rid of the 16 thing, and I suppose I can understand that to an extent.
Especially because she's at one stage going to be forced to marry Jafar, an adult.
Yeah.
So, like, having someone who, at the time of the film, is 15, being forced to marry an adult, maybe a tad problematic. Good idea to get that out. Though it's funny, like, the end of the film where the Sultan is like, oh, these pesky laws. Oh, wait, I am all powerful. I do not have to be accountable to anybody. I can just change it. This is a dictatorship. Yeah. Woo! Hurrah! You can get married.
I can summarily change the laws with no oversight. Yeah. So, like, it's funny how it took him to the end of the film to figure that out.
That hits a little different in 2020, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Screenwriting duo Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio were brought in to rework the story. The changes they made included the removal of Aladdin's mother, which also 86 Proud of Your Boy, because that was in relation to Aladdin's mother.
Also classic Disney, get the parents out of there.
Yeah. The strengthening of the character of Princess Jasmine and the deletion of several Ashman/Menken songs.
Let's start with Jasmine. What do you think of Jasmine in this film? Because she has a great deal of agency.
She does, and she fights back against as you said, she's not a prize to be won. She's not okay with just going with this whole thing of all these men deciding what's right for her and what's right for her life. And she does try to run away. That's an interesting thing. I had this in my notes. I always thought that she left the palace just to
explore and be like, I just want to witness the people. I think, is that the way they framed it in the remake, maybe?
I think they framed it like that in the remake and in the musical as well. So maybe that's just why I'm remembering it that way. But I always thought she just went just to have a look.
Yeah, just went disguised exploring the streets just to witness the wonders of Agrabah, not try to escape from her oppressive father who's trying to marry her to anybody with a heartbeat.
Yeah. I think that while I have problems with how she's designed as a character and how she is treated in fairness, but like it does resolve itself. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I think she's among the better Disney princesses.
Yeah.
In that she's just not going to have any of this shit.
Yeah.
She's sick of it. And like she's still in a world where the women are oppressed and all that, but at least she's pushing back against that world rather than surrendering to it or needing to be saved from it, neither of which are really the case.
And she also takes an active role in changing her narrative.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's an improvement.
What was the second half of that I meant to get onto? Oh, taking the Ashman and Menken songs out, which I'm just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Aladdin's personality was rewritten to be a little rougher, like a young Harrison Ford, and the parrot Iago, originally conceived as an uptight British archetype. They love their uptight British archetype, don't they?
They'd reuse it again for frickin' what's the Yazoo in the next film.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't get the bird
Zazu.
to be... It's the same thing. We didn't get the bird to be the uptight British archetype in the last one, but we'll damn well get it into The Lion King.
So they decided, having seen Gilbert Gottfried in Beverly Hills Cop 2, he was cast in the role.
One of two performances are very much built around the actor. That's a very Gilbert Gottfried. Everything about him is a Gilbert Gottfried. Like it's written to the actor very clearly.
Yeah, and in fairness, I think this is probably the most palatable version of
Gilbert Gottfried, given he's lived off this in Beverly Hills Cop for 30 years now, just doing that same loud voice over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's like he's almost become a bit of a meme in 2020, where people roll him out just to do the shouty thing.
Yeah, it's like Billy Eichner, but used to just be the shouty guy until he stopped just being the shouty guy. Billy Eichner was nearly like modern Gilbert Gottfried.
It's really interesting as well, Gard. Clements and Musker always had Robin Williams in mind for the Genie, but Jeffrey Katzenberg suggested actors like John Candy, Steve Martin, and Eddie Murphy, who would eventually end up in a Disney film in Milan. This film is mostly remembered for the performance of Robin Williams.
It's the Robin Williams show. This entire film, we what are we on? Before editing, we're about half an hour into this podcast, and we're finally getting to... We buried the lead, Ken. This is the Robin Williams show. This entire film is a Robin Williams vehicle, and it really can't be denied that like his energy is what this film is. Yeah. Like his energy is what takes this film from like formulaic Disney princess love story and makes it something memorable and something distinct and something unique and something that literally cannot be replicated because it's the raw energy of Robin Williams, that comic, chaotic energy of Robin Williams that cannot really be captured or bottled or written. You just let him go. You unleash him and you animate around him, which is basically what they did, isn't it?
I think it's a great point reflecting on it after watching it so many times over the years. Without him, this film, it still has some great songs going for it and an appealing lead, but I don't know if it would have stood the test of time. Gar, to your point, unusually for an animated film, much of Williams' dialogue was ad-libbed for some scenes. Williams was given topics and dialogue suggestions, but was allowed to improvise his lines. It is estimated that Williams improvised as many as 52 characters, which is, he's like the way I describe Robin Williams is he's like a wind-up toy. You just wind him up and let him go, and he just goes off in all these different directions. That was his true genius.
And he goes and he goes and he goes and it's like Jackal Nicholson time, and he goes and he goes and he goes and it's just like...
Eric Goldberg, the supervising animator for the Genie, then reviewed Williams's... Is that right? Williams recorded dialogue and selected the best gags and lines that his crew would create character animation to match. Imagine being the animators for the Genie having to adjust to all Robin Williams' quirks and improvisations.
And like just to capture his energy. Because while Genie is doing all of this, he can never be still. You know, you can't just have a character delivering a line, because that's not Robin Williams' energy. Robin Williams would never just be standing still, doing nothing as he does all of this manic, crazy stuff, because, like, nobody can keep up with his brain. So, like, every time he does all of this, you have to animate it so rigorously. And that's how they won him the job, isn't it? They animated his stand-up and been like, hey, we want to do this, but a Disney film. And he was like... It's great. I love it. Robin
Williams, he agreed to do the film for SAG rate, which at the time was around $75,000 due to the success of the Touchstone film Good Morning Vietnam. So that's a Disney studio.
Yeah.
But on
it was also releasing a month before another film of his was coming out. Toys. So they didn't want the Robin Williams marketing cannibalization to happen. So they agreed not to put his name on the film.
Yeah, so they couldn't use his name in the promotion. The character couldn't be featured more than 25% of the
promotional
poster
material. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Like, that's the one thing not advertising Robin Williams, but like, not putting the Genie in more than 25% of the promotional material is the one that's probably easiest to keep. That promise, and they broke it.
Yeah, they broke it immediately. So just to give you the context, his asking rate was $8 million.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because like now obviously actors are paid an awful lot of money. Like, we're getting to the point where actors are getting paid $50 million for a movie, which is insane. But when you break it down to, there's the months and months on set, there's the promotion, the use of their likeness, like it does break down. Like, so like, it's not just the acting in the film, like they do the press junket, they do all that stuff. So he did it for literally nothing. The only thing he asked was that they didn't use his name or likeness in the promotion, and they immediately broke it. So
that's so bad. Like, he did you a solid. You got him for nothing. You got one of the greatest comic actors of all time to do your film for practically nothing. Just on and like, his performance would have sold the film. You didn't need to advertise Robin Williams. Like, the media and all of that would have done that for you. Like, the second this film is reviewed, all anybody would talk about is that Robin Williams performance. You did not need to advertise him. You did not need to break those agreements, because you would have gotten the word of mouth and found media, as we like to call it these days. You would have gotten all of that for free, but they still broke it. God damn it, Disney.
Robin Williams obviously was not pleased at this, because Toys went on to make a loss. So,
the reason Toys went on to make a loss is not because Disney advertised them for Aladdin. It's because no one cared about Toys.
I remember Toys being on a lot when we were kids, and I kind of liked it when I was a kid, but I haven't watched it in a lot.
I don't remember Toys at all.
Yeah.
But like realistic, it's not like we've had our Robin Williams film. We saw him promoted for this other film. We don't want to see him again.
Robin Williams joked afterwards that the reason Mickey Mouse has 3 fingers is so he can't pick up a check.
Well, hey!
So like, in fairness, like, whatever about going back on your word, but like, if you go back on your word, pay him.
Yeah.
So eventually they gave him a Picasso painting, which was worth $1 million at the time, as a way to say sorry, but he rejected it because it didn't fit with his zany decor in his house.
Uh-huh.
And years later, they arranged a public apology for him when Katzenberg was ousted from the studio, and he agreed to do the third film. In the second film, the Genie is voiced by Dan Castellaneta, who is Homer Simpson.
Imagine that. Imagine being the guy who has to be like, you have to do Robin Williams. It's not like the Will Smith version or the stage version where you can at least do variations on the Genie. When they did the first straight-to-video sequel of Aladdin, like, Dan Castellaneta had to come in and do Robin Williams. He had to do that performance, because they actually brought Robin Williams back for the third one.
Yes, I just said that, Gar.
Yes, but for the second one, like, imagine trying to match Robin Williams.
Because as we said, Gar, that was a one-off performance. It is all just came from his mind in the moment and his energy. So that's a real tough task to follow. But it could have gotten to the point where he's like, pull the film, and we might never have seen his performance.
And I wouldn't have blamed him, because they broke their word.
So that's a really interesting story about this film. So I really wanted to include that.
And I said it's Robin Williams is this film. That's not an overstatement. When you ask people what people remember from Aladdin, it's like A Whole New World's a hell of a song, and all the other stuff. But the 2 biggest numbers are Robin Williams numbers, which actually interesting. They're not on Spotify. I wonder why.
Might be a copyright thing.
But it's only the Robin Williams songs that aren't on Spotify.
Maybe it's to do with this commercial agreement, Gar.
Maybe it is. Maybe they couldn't produce the music as well.
Yeah.
It's a strange one.
But for me, like, Prince Ali and A Friend Like Me are probably the top 2 songs in this film, and he performed them with the same gusto that he did the dialogue.
Yeah. And like Robin Williams is one of those people who is like, he's a creative genius. He's one of the greatest comic actors of all time. An incredible actor in his own right. Never mind the comic proviso.
But he came from a dramatic background.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like the pathos was there. You could always tell the pathos was there. So any performance that called on his pathos, like he was phenomenal, because he's a once in a generation talent that cannot be matched. And he's one of those actors that was like so fundamental to like particularly our childhood, like kids in the 90s,
Yeah.
who had Flubber, who had Aladdin, who had Mrs. Doubtfire, who had Jumanji, who had Jack, who had all of these big Robin Williams performances. And that's not counting like the serious stuff he did or the stuff like AI, all that stuff. But those like very family-friendly performances that just took Robin Williams and unleashed him on children. And like his energy is like so perfect for family movies. Like kids can't look away from that Robin Williams energy.
And it's so sad that he left us so soon, you know, and there's not many people who I would call a hero in terms of entertainment, but he would be one of those people that just, partially, as you said, because of he was ubiquitous in our childhood, but also because he was such a genius talent that you just cannot look away when he's on screen, and you can't deny it. And it just makes you sad that we could have seen more from him and we didn't, you know.
Yeah, and potentially some of his best work was taken from us, which is always so depressing. But the work he left behind is timeless. It's weird because, like, you know, Gilbert Gottfried is a thing of its time, and it kind of grates on you. And a lot of things that were like really like dynamic, engaging things of their time. Generally, we add that things of their time qualifier for a reason, because we look back on it, like The Cave of Wonders was very good for its time. We look back on it, aged not so well. Robin Williams does not age. You know, his material does not date. You watch this film and it's like that, again, that comic energy cannot be contained. And it's so like engaging and endearing. And it is this film. Like, this film has nothing else other than Robin Williams, which is miraculous because Jeffrey Katzenberg was throwing things out and changing and chopping and changing. All this film needed was good songs and Robin Williams. All this film had, in the end, was good songs and Robin Williams.
And you mentioned their pathos, Karen. Like, the Genie doesn't have too many serious moments, but Robin Williams had a very good way of, like, he'd be going at breakneck speed, like all these gags and stuff. But the Genie has some really good somber moments as well. And it really hits you in the gut. Like the scene when Aladdin essentially betrays the Genie and goes back on his promise to free him. That, you know, you really felt for the Genie. He was devastated. And again, obviously that's due to the skill of the animators, but it's also due to the skill of his performance.
Because, yeah, he could turn on that dime. Because he had that kind of range. Like, a miraculous actor. Like, really. And, like, a lot of comedians generally have that, like, weird pathos to them. But, like, for him to have those chops in both directions on, like, a top level, like, once in a generation talent, he's miraculous. He's a wonderful man.
I recommend literally any of his live stage performances. Just turn them on YouTube and let him go, because it's just food for the soul.
Yeah, watch all of his, like, watch Good Morning Vietnam, watch Dead Poets Society, watch Good Will Hunting, watch all of his, like, more serious dramatic stuff. Fantastic. Or that weird horror film people rave about but I've never seen.
Oh, the photo booth?
Is it 1 Hour Photo?
1 Hour Photo, that's it.
Isn't that one people say is actually a really good performance but no one actually talks about?
Yeah. He didn't I don't think he even got nominated for that, and that was a surprise.
It's like, when you look at Robin Williams' filmography, it's actually very strange to see as, like, we turn the millennium. It's like people forgot how talented he was. Because you look at some of the, like, shite that he ended up having, like RV, Happy Feet, Night at the Museum. Like, his work in the 2000s dropped off, not because he dropped off as a performer. It just seems like people didn't hire him to do good stuff anymore.
They just want to pigeonhole him into a dad or a granddad role or something like that.
Yeah, to do the thing you did in Mrs. Doubtfire for families over and over again in less compelling and less well-written material. It seems to be what people did, and that's a tragedy in its own right.
Yeah, as you said, we could have been robbed of some of his best work even when he was alive, you know. Not too much more here on the story, Garrett. One thing I noticed more than any other watching this film, the Sultan is the Sultan of exposition.
He's a goof. I love him. He's just like, oh, Jafar, my most trusted advisor. And Jafar's like, I'm cackling and hypnotizing. Well, I suppose technically he's being hypnotized with that staff, so maybe he doesn't believe that. Maybe he's just... Though actually, when he's betrayed at the end of his film, he's like, Jafar, my most trusted advisor, betray me?
What? Jasmine, you must be married by the toll of your 16th or your next birthday.
Yeah, he's a dumb character. I kind of like it.
I kind of like the fact that he just basically says everything that's happening out loud. As you said, we're back to falling in love in just one glance. Aladdin falls for Jasmine instantly. We talked about that, but the one thing I want to mention is Abu is a surrogate for all of us when it comes to the love story in this movie.
Oh yeah, like Aladdin goes on and on about it and Abu's just rolling his eyes. It's like, oh, there he goes again. I did like this film as like a solid central theme, the theme of feeling trapped.
Yes.
Which follows through with, I think, all major characters. Like Jafar is trapped in the role as advisor. Jasmine is trapped in the cultural norms of her time. Aladdin is trapped in poverty.
Yeah.
And Genie is trapped in a mythical agreement to be all powerful, but only grant wishes and be stuck inside a tiny lamp. So like all of these characters are trapped and trying to escape something, which I think is like, there's a decent narrative thread there. There's like something you can bite your teeth into. And it's not subtle, because there's a moment where Jasmine and Aladdin both realize that they're trapped, and that's why they bond together. They're both trapped by their own relative circumstances. But it's a solid theme to run through a film that really captures all of the characters and where they are and where they want to go, except the Sultan, who's just a goof.
There is the main theme of being trapped, but there's also, coming on from that, the notion of acceptance.
Yeah.
So accepting who you are, you can rise above that and rise above your station and go on to do better things. But I think you should stay true to yourself and who you are, because that's the thing that will take you furthest in life.
That is the whole new world, Ken.
Gar, one last thing here. Jafar, he's in the discussion of many as a top-tier Disney villain, possibly one of the best of all time. Where does he rank in the canon of Disney villains for you? Like, he does go big, in fairness to him.
I think he's a poor man's Scar.
Ooh.
Yeah, there you go. Very similar performances, to be fair. They could both just as well be voiced by Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
It almost feels like Jeremy Irons is doing a Jafar impression when he's doing Scar when you actually watch this film, because they actually sound very similar. And I guess Scar hams it up a little more. But I don't know, watching this film, there's not actually much there.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the character design, it's iconic. It has that kind of...
He looks great. Yeah, I'll give you that.
And he's different from they specifically made him different from the other characters who were all kind of swooping lines and solid curves and all that. He's more angular and stuff like that, or more like origami, I think Andreas Deja, who designed him, said. Yeah, so the look is great. I think the performance is fantastic.
The actual character depth, there's really not a lot going on.
He's just a bad guy.
He just wants to be the Sultan, and he wants to marry somebody to make it happen.
And he wants to be all powerful.
There's not a lot of character. Like when you look at Ratigan, who was great, but he had that deep story about being a rat in a mouse's world.
And having an inferiority complex. And as much as Gaston is one-dimensional, he at least is an allegory for the world that we live in.
Yeah, I think Gaston's a much better villain, because one, he's funnier, because his pure, horrible sexism and hatred of all things that aren't normal, quote-unquote, is wonderful. It's just so, on the nose that it's very enjoyable. Maleficent commands the room a lot more than Jafar does, I think. So, I don't know. I don't love... I put Ursula ahead of Jafar.
You would?
Yeah. Better song, because Jafar doesn't really have a song. He has just a reprise of Prince Ali. Yeah, he has a reprise of Prince Ali, that's barely even a song. It's just a reprise. Come on. Yeah, I'd put Ursula ahead of him. I don't like Jafar, is I think my hot take coming out of this film. I think he's kind of boring.
That's why I wanted to mention it, because everyone mentions him possibly because he's in a period of films that everyone remembers, and this is a big one for people. But if I look at the list of villains, as you said, I start to think of all the other villains, he gets pushed further and further down the list, Yeah.
But he looks great. He does look great.
And it's a great performance. There's nothing taken away from the actual performance and the effort itself, but I just think there's not much behind it. I would like to see, not to redeem him, but to see some more motivation.
Yeah, he's just this guy who wants... How did he get to that role? How does he live? Scar is the brother?
He's the brother, and he's the older brother, so he should have been king.
Yeah, he's rightful king. He has a reason to be pissed. So, the Scar has that, extra layer, and he has, why... That's why he's there. Who is Jafar? I don't know.
We don't know anything about them, and they don't really do anything to advance that in the live-action film either.
Or in the sequel, Return of Jafar.
Gar, touching on the music here, this is the last film to feature involvement from Howard Ashman. It makes you think what could have been.
Actually, do you notice when the film opens, who got top billing, Ken?
Howard Ashman?
No, it's Alan Menken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you see the first credit you see is original score by Alan Menken. I found that quite interesting. That top billing is Alan Menken. That's what we want to tell people. It's an Alan Menken score.
Well, the film is dedicated to Ashman, so that's nice.
Even though they took half of his songs out of it.
Yeah.
Great. No, Tim Rice did Tim Rice's songs aren't. It's not like they're you watch this film, it's the Menken songs are home runs, but A Whole New World and One Jump Ahead, duds. Oh, Tim Rice really bottled it. He really didn't. He did a tremendous job.
Yeah, but it just makes me think would he have done The Lion King? What would he have done in the future? And as you said, he was a creative genius, and we could have seen more from him at Disney, and it just makes me wonder what we could have seen in the future.
Especially post Katzenberg, when they might have actually gotten some creative freedom.
Yeah.
Of having to desperately fight to get everything he wanted into these films.
And as these films became more successful, I think he would have had more freedom by default, because the money was there, the belief was there again,
And he would have just had that cash. He would have carried that weight.
Yeah, it's just a real shame. But A Friend Like Me is one of of my top 5 favorite Disney songs. And finally, a surreal sequence in a Disney film that actually works.
Well, there was one in the last one as well, wasn't there? The Be Your Guest, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but this is more of a kind of surreal...
But I guess, Be Your Guest was contextualized within the broader film. This is just... But even, at least Genie is like, I'm flexing my magic, bro.
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew.
But I just think it shows off the magic in a really fun way. Prince Ali, for me, is a really underrated song in this film and in Disney history in general.
The only good part, I would have said, of the live-action remake is the Prince Ali number, which I think they did a very good job of. Because, as I said, it's a big, bombastic, go big or go home musical number, which, in fairness, so was Friend Like Me. And honestly, so was
They changed that too much in the live-action film. Will Smith actually delivers that Prince Ali really well in the live-action film, but I thought they changed Friend Like Me too much and made a bit of a hip-hop song. I didn't know.
Oh, Ken's the hip-hop culture is ruining my Disney films.
You mentioned it there as well, Gar. A Whole New World. It's a perfectly serviceable song with many merits, but it's not a favourite of mine. In fact, it's probably my 4th favourite in this film. So it is a very good song, but it's just not...
I don't know, it's a banger. And I probably agree. It's I'd put One Jump Ahead of it, which is extremely underrated. Yes. Not enough people talk about One Jump Ahead. It's up there. It's interesting. But both One Jump Ahead and Belle are those two super underrated songs from these films. Those character introduction songs, which do such a wonderful job and are so wonderfully catchy. So, but yeah, I'd put it behind that. I'd put it behind Friend Like Me. I'd put it behind Prince Ali. So it would also be my fourth. But I also think it's a banger.
No, it's a banger, but I just think it's funny that I just think that it wouldn't be the first song I'd listen to if I was listening to it.
It won the Academy Award, Ken. That's all that matters.
Of course it did.
It's actually, of course, Aladdin was a downgrade from Beauty and the Beast, because Beauty and the Beast had 3 songs nominated, Ken, whereas Aladdin only had 2. Friend Like Me and A Whole New World were nominated. It's actually, I was looking at the Wikipedia page for best song, and I think it's actually an interesting way to track the Disney Renaissance. It's did they have a nomination for best song? Where The Lion King did, Pocahontas did, I assume Hercules probably did. Yeah, Hercules did, and then kind of stops. And you begin to realize, oh no, Tarzan did. Yeah. And as you begin to see...
I'm surprised that Hunchback of Notre Dame didn't have one.
Yeah, it doesn't. And as you begin to go into the 2000s, Monsters, Inc. did, but no Disney film did. And, Toy Story 2 did, but no Disney film did. And I think you legitimately can track, the Disney Renaissance by whether or not they had songs nominated for best song at the Oscars.
That's a barometer of success.
And when did they come back, Ken? 2009, Princess and the Frog.
You rest your case.
Yeah, the last Disney song to be nominated for an Oscar, not counting Enchanted, which technically is a Disney film, not counting Cars, which and Shrek 2 had a frickin' song nominated. As we continue to scroll until we find... The Wild Thornberrys had a song nominated, Ken, in this period where Disney didn't.
Well, I had a Peter Gabriel song, in fairness.
Well, there you go. So yeah, between The Emperor's New Groove, where my funny friend and me was nominated in 2000, and The Princess and the Frog in 2009... 9-year stretch without a nomination for best song. And that's the Disney drought, isn't it?
Yeah, and now every year they nearly have one. So, yeah.
And I would dispute that, because I'd be like, Brother Bear should have had a nomination. On My Way's a banger. Yes. Lilo and Stitch should have had a nomination. Hawaiian Roller Coaster, which I think is the only original song in that film.
Yes.
But it's a banger. So, they should have probably had a couple of them in there. But it is an interesting way to track the decline of Disney, what people generally consider the post-Renaissance decline. It's interesting to look back at those Oscar nominations and be like, yeah. But yeah, Friend Like Me, Part of Your World got nominated. Not Part of Your World, A Whole New World. They love their world songs. With A Whole New World winning.
No, it deserved to win, but I it's probably not one of my favourite ones.
That year you also had The Bodyguard, had 2 songs nominated.
Yeah, you would have thought that would have won, wouldn't you?
You would have thought so. At least a high candidate. And The Mambo Kings, which I've never heard of.
The legacy of this film speaks for itself in some ways, as we said, Robin Williams being the top of the list. It also had a successful Broadway and West End musical adaptation. Jonathan Freeman, who played Jafar, also originated the role in the Broadway musical, which I thought was a nice piece of casting. Also
a stupidly successful live-action remake.
Of course, yes.
Which made it, again, $1 billion.
It's almost like these make $1 billion by default now.
They really do. It's just churn them out, $1 billion.
There's 2 direct-to-video sequels, Return of Jafar and King of Thieves. There's already a sequel for the live-action film planned, and they're saying that it's going to be based on the King of Thieves. Aladdin is often also credited with being the catalyst in the rise of casting film stars as voice actors in Hollywood animated films with the success of Robin Williams' Genie.
They did that before this, though.
Yeah, but this...
but this is the one where you're this person's famous, put him in a film, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
As opposed to, we need someone that fits this role.
They happen to be famous.
Yeah.
Entertainment writer Scott Meslow wrote that compared with the character of Aladdin, Williams' Genie is the character audiences responded to, and more importantly to Disney, is the most marketable character by far, which he concluded led to the celebrification of later animated films.
Which you kind of get, it's like the film is more like, what was that film that had Chris Pratt and Tom Holland in it?
Onward.
No, wait, I'm thinking of the other one. It had Tom Holland in it, but not Chris Pratt, where he was like a spy.
Oh, Spy in the Skies, or
whatever. Someone was turned into a bug. Who was the other person in that film?
Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith and Chris Pratt. Or not, and Tom Holland. That's one of those is like, we have Will Smith and freaking Tom Holland in an animated film. That's literally the entire reason this film exists.
And if you watch...
I haven't seen it. It might actually be good. I shouldn't be throwing it under the bus.
Yeah, it's a Disney property now because it was done by Fox. But if you watch John Mulaney's Sack Lunch Bunch special, have you seen that on Netflix?
No.
There's like a skit on that about a folks group of kids who saw an animated film as some dumb name, but they're like, oh, who did the voice of this? And they all knew. And who did the voice of this? And they all knew. And one of the kids said something along the lines of like, who did the voice of the zebra or whatever? It's like, Mandy Patinkin. It's like, and the kid's like, with his lisp, he's like, as soon as I heard him exhale, I knew it was all Mandy. And the whole skit is just saying that like kids don't give a crap who these actors are or who does the voices, and most of the time they don't notice. So
Spies in Disguise was the name of that film.
I got it right, Gar.
Good job, Ken.
Gar, I find it interesting that out of all the public domain tales that Disney has adapted, that no major studio has been brave enough to attempt their own take on the story of Aladdin. I think that speaks to the ubiquity of the Disney version in the public consciousness. The visuals are fantastic and they really do a good job of creating a feeling of a different world from our own of magic and mystery. So again, it looks good, but I think it's just, to me, it's almost too good to the extent that like there's no real artistry in it. It's more of like, just as you said, get it done and have it look good.
Yeah, it's Jungle Book level animation. Serviceable, you'll never bump on it, but you'll never be like wowed by it either.
The songs are on a par with other Disney classics of the time, with a string of toe-tapping earworms that you'll be singing for days. I do feel as if the storytelling is a bit by the numbers and a step backwards from the complex tale that Disney wove in Beauty and the Beast, but Aladdin makes up for it with a lead that you root for and the legendary performance of Robin Williams as the Genie. I may be a bit biased because of my emotional connection to this film and love of Robin Williams, as we gushed about earlier, but these magical elements make Aladdin a Disney classic.
Yeah, as I said at the start, very formula film. Like, the way the songs are introduced, what the songs are about, the love story, all of that is all very formula. Even like the character of Aladdin is like, relatively speaking, kind of a blank cipher. A homeless orphan wants to be famous, wants to be recognized, falls in love, becomes prince.
He's a typical teen with attitude from the 90s.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. This is the voice where there's like the biggest discrepancy between the singing voice and the acting voice.
Yeah.
Where they sound like relatively different people, which is a thing I didn't bump on before, but I did bump on here. Not considerably so, but I'm like, that singing voice is... And it's two different people. That's why it sounds like two different people. But like, the legacy of this film is Robin Williams. That performance. That's what people remember, Those big songs, those big numbers, and then A Whole New World is fine. But I don't think anybody's super invested in the love story between Aladdin and Jasmine. Like, no. Jasmine, I think, is an interesting character that pushes Disney princesses a little further forward in terms of having more agency and like, denying the world, imposing itself on her rather than her imposing herself on the world. But what this film comes down to is that Robin Williams performance. Above all else, that is what people will always remember from this film. And that's the reason this film is very hard to adapt and very hard to remake and all of that stuff, because everybody, no matter how good they are, and I think Will Smith did an admirable job in the remake, as admirable as one can do, but he's not Robin Williams. Yeah. And nobody will be Robin Williams.
And when you look at the film when this was cast and it was announced that Will Smith would do it, they instantly wrote him off because, like, and that's unfair in some ways, but I understand it as well because it's a towering performance and it was a Herculean task, for want of a better term, pun not intended, to try and match that, And again, he did an admirable job, but that's a one-off performance in its time that you're never going to replicate.
Yeah, because you're never going to top Robin Williams and you're never even going to match Robin Williams. So your best bet is to do something different, but then what the hell you're making Aladdin for again? Unless you completely reinvent that role and make it something completely, which is not what they did. They more or less tried to have a match Robin Williams with a few quirks here and there that were more like Will Smith. But you're never going to match that performance, which is the reason this film will sit in its moment in time as the definitive piece of Aladdin culture, or at least the Disney version of it. Like, no matter what they do, no matter how many times they try and reboot it or remake it or make sequels or do other things with this property, that film will sit as the pinnacle. because of that performance, and it will be forever its legacy, plus some bangers. And obviously, of course, the kind of supplemental legacy, the last film that Howard Ashman worked on.
All right, Street Rats. Sadly, we've nearly come to the end of our show for another week. Magic by Design's resident musical expert Nicole is coming up with something brand new this week. I can promise you that it's sensational to be sure, so stick around for that at the end of the show. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. There, you'll also be able to find all our previous episodes if you're catching up or feel like revisiting an old favourite. Magic by Design is also on all your favourite social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magic by Design Pod, on Twitter at Magic Design Pod, and on the Insta at Magic by Design Pod. If you enjoy our Disney discussions and want to support the show, please do consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice, share the podcast on your socials, or even recommend the show to a fellow Disney fan. If you give us a 5-star review, we will give you 3 wishes. That's right. 3 items from the website wish.com, as long as they cost less than $10.
In fairness, with Wish you can make it less than like $2 and probably still getting something pretty solid, if not something you actually want, because that's the way Wish generally works. Good jumping on point for the podcast, by the way, if you want to tell any friends, because like we're moving into the classic Disney 90s films that everybody likes. We've done Beauty and the Beast, we're doing Aladdin. Next week is The Lion King. Everyone should be very excited by these big films we're hitting, so tell your friends that we're going to talk about The Lion King.
Yeah, like if you're not interested before, this is the stuff that is made for us kids of the 90s, so come on board. This train is kicking into high gear, Gar.
Yeah, if you're one of the people who has listened all the way into this over hour-long podcast now, which Ken will probably be very upset about because it'll take a very long time to edit, you're clearly one of our super fans and we love you and thank you. But yeah, tell your friends. Good time to jump on.
We will be back next week at the same time, same place, as Gar said, with Disney's 32nd animated feature, The Lion King. But until then, stay safe and remember, today's special moments are tomorrow's memories. Now then, Nicole usually sings one song at the end of each episode, but she simply couldn't choose this week. Something tells me that this is going to be a recurring problem going forward, so she has decided to bring you something different this week by performing a medley of songs from Aladdin, as well as providing her usual enlightening fun facts about the music of the film. Thanks for listening, and take it away, Nicole.
Hello there, Disney lovers. It's me, your musical correspondent Nicole, coming to you live from my bedroom. This week, we're looking at the street rat, Aladdin. This is the final movie to feature songs by the duo Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, with Tim Rice taking over from Ashman after he passed away from complications due to AIDS. 14 songs are written for the movie, but only 7 feature, 3 by Ashman and 4 by Rice, with music by Menken. Tim Rice might be a familiar name to some. He is an English lyricist, probably best known for writing lyrics for Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita. He also adapted Beauty and the Beast for stage. The music on the album earned composer Alan Menken an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for Best Original Score, as well as a nomination for the BAFTA Award for Best Film Music. Menken also shared an Academy Award, Golden Globe, and the first and only Grammy Award for Song of the Year with Tim Rice for the song A Whole New World. In the movie score, Menken uses motifs derived from the song melodies for the character cues. For instance, Aladdin's theme always echoes one jump ahead. Jasmine and the Genie both have To Be Free as their motif, echoing their desires to be free. The Sultan normally has a royal fanfare, while Jafar's theme is a darker version of Arabian Nights. So, I'm sure you're wondering what song I decided on this week, as there are loads of bops. However, my favourite song doesn't feature in the original film. I love Proud of Your Boy, which was composed for the film, but only features in the musical adaptation. But I do have a special outro for you today, a medley of my favourites. I hope you enjoy it. Arabian nights, like Arabian days, more often than not, are hotter than hot in a lot of good ways. Arabian nights, neath Arabian moons, a fool off his guard could fall and fall hard out there on the dunes. of a drug bag. With 60 elephants, llamas galore, with bears and lions, a brass band and more. His 40 fingers, he